TLC Field School to get a better understanding of this community. And if you wouldn't mind, would you please tell us your name and place of birth?
Okay. Well, my name is Bobby McQuary Jr. I was born in Gary, Indiana. I moved to Milwaukee in 1979, and I've been a resident in the Washington Park neighborhood for, yeah, you can say ever since I moved here in '79. We moved around the neighborhood a lot, but I've pretty much, centered in the Washington Park neighborhood.
And then would you mind telling us about your educational background?
Okay. I graduated from high school at Washington Washington High, which is right in Washington Park area, right on Wright and Sherman. I graduated from Milwaukee Area Technical College with a human service degree. I attended Cardinal Stretch University for a year and a half, and I ultimately transferred to UWM and the Halle Bader School of Social Welfare, and I'm currently a senior there.
That's man. That's great to hear that more people going to college. I don't really see too many else when I be at school. So
Yeah, tell me about it, man. Unique thing about my situation with college was that out of high school I went the other way, and the other way is that I went into the work field, looking to get a job and make money, and then. After landing myself at a good job and was able to stabilize myself, I was able to become a landlord. I bought my first house. I believe I was around 23 years old. Bought my first house. Second house around 25. And when I was 27, I opened up a liquor store. I bought a small building and opened up a liquor store on 20th and Center called Central City Liquor. So you could say I would say around 2000, I had 4 properties in a small liquor store. And at that point, I had attempted to go to college a couple times, but nothing past a couple semesters at that point. So I decided, the work field was for me. I needed to make money, so I went that road. Ultimately, after some years of success, I still felt some was missing, and although I aspired to own a liquor store, it wasn't, ultimately what I wanted to do once I got it. I guess you could say I had a plan to get there, but I didn't have a plan to stay. So I ended up going back to school, selling the liquor store, downsizing on the properties that I had. I started having kids, and eventually I just went back to school and said this is what I wanted to do. I've always helped people in my community do different things. I always supported different events that went on in the community from a financial standpoint because I was doing pretty good, and I always felt a good need to give back and help out when I could. So I did those things, and it was a natural fit for me to go into human service. And I also took an element of political science. I also wanted to know why things look the way they look, why things happen the way they happen. I knew it wasn't an accident for things to look the way they look and things happen the way they happen when you take a look across the country and you look at the inner cities. Being an African American from an inner city, one that has had terrible dilapidations such as Gary, Indiana, I didn't really want to see what happened in my hometown city to happen in my surrogate home, Milwaukee. So I started to take an interest in how things look, the way they look, and what makes things operate. So I went to a community. I took a course that lasted, I think it was 12 weeks in Making Connections. It was a program called Making Connections, and we dove into what makes a community and your role in the community and the different factors that factors into, how your community looks. And I was able to learn a lot there that I did not learn in school. And that also helped propel me to want to learn more and had me go back to school for social welfare.
Through that, you were saying how it's helping you seeing how a community looks or why it looks the way that it looks.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say has been your experience as to why Washington Park community has been looked upon by others in such a negative way?
A couple things. Of course, we had the 90s where drugs kind of ran rampant. This community had its fair share of drug dealing and illegal activities. But this neighborhood also has a history of being an influential neighborhood, a hard work. Well, let's not say influential. Let's go back and say a blue collar neighborhood. Washington Park had the first Milwaukee County Zoo that was in the community, and it was here until the 1940s, I want to say. So around the zoo was hardworking class families. We had some of the best housing structure in the city. When you look at A-frame duplex, the sheer size of the houses, so that what made the community a success ultimately aided into its decline. Because with some of the A-frame structures and duplexes that's so close in proximity to each other, it's not uncommon to go down a traditional block where housing has not been knocked down and see 15 duplexes facing the same street on each side. So you take 15 duplexes on one side, 15 duplexes on another side. Now you have a total of 60 different families on one block. Let's say that each family got 2 kids. As you can see, the multiplication starts to go up in the number of people on one block and how congested that is. Now imagine a 4 or 5 block radius just going in a straight line. You can have what looks like a gang of 300 kids, and they all just stay within 3 or 4 blocks of each other. So that in itself is kind of like a phenomenon of people. Then when you add situations up on it, on top of Milwaukee lost a lot of jobs. There was a lot of family supporting jobs in Milwaukee in the 80s, and the 90s started to disappear. About the time the 2000s came around, was completely gone. Jobs such as Tower A.O. Smith, jobs that was at Allen Bradley, even Harley Davidson done some downsizing. AMC totally left. American Motor Corporation, they totally left. Milwaukee was a city that's kind of was built on some manufacturing, and it had to morph itself. And when those jobs left, it left a lot of jobs that African Americans had, that suddenly wasn't there anymore. So when you vacate jobs and you have a situation where overcrowding can happen, Milwaukee had a lenient AFDC system in the 80s and 90s, which we refer known as welfare, but it was really AFDC. That made it lucrative when the dope business became lucrative again in the 90s here. So we had a lot of people selling dope, the obvious crack cocaine, marijuana. The murder rates went up. Milwaukee has always had an influx because it was the state of Wisconsin was a forward-thinking state, one of the most liberal states in the union for a long time. If you look at the logo of the state of Wisconsin, it's got forward on there because Milwaukee was kind of forward in its state. The state of Wisconsin wasn't so conservative as it is now. It was kind of forward in its thinking and kind of liberal, So that brought a lot of people from different cities to Milwaukee because Milwaukee still had a economic movement. Even other ones was dying. Milwaukee still has something. And even to this day, Milwaukee has morphed itself from a sheer manufacturing city to a city that does a whole lot with construction. And, Milwaukee is constantly reinventing itself. So I don't see it going the likes of Gary, Indiana, or Detroit. Because Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee and state of Wisconsin seem to, find a way to stay afloat. Our jobs may not be the same. They may not all be family supporting jobs, but, there's still some jobs and some ability to be retooled.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that it just fell off like that. But would you consider that Milwaukee is moving forward, even though some of the things that it has aren't moving forward with it? What I'm saying is the people and the way things are keep advancing, but it seems that the way that the environment's set up isn't really changing with the way that the people are changing for their needs and wants.
Well, that's kind of like a double-edged sword there with that question. Things are changing, and you could take a look in the Washington Park area right now. UMCS is the convenient agency for my program, Washington Park Partners, and it's been in the area for over 20 years, and it has invested. It has invested a lot of money because we have at least 70 new units of construction within a 4-block radius. So you have Habitat for Humanity, who decided to build exclusively in the Washington Park area for 5 years. That's a major size investment. We've had the Burn Initiative, the Burn Grant Initiative, which is a collaboration between the Milwaukee Police Department, Safe and Sound, and Washington Park Partners. That was a $600,000 grant to come into the community and study and make improvements between the relationship between the citizens and police and community organizations. The actual crime in the Washington Park area has dropped. I believe the statistics was 17 to 20%, as opposed to the rest of the city. So there are some strides being made. But let's be clear about this. You're not going to change what some people think about the city of Milwaukee for that sake, as well as Washington Park neighborhood, if they don't live in Milwaukee. It's very rare that you will hear someone outside of Milwaukee speak highly of Milwaukee. The overall perception of most people in the state of Wisconsin is that Milwaukee itself is not safe. So it doesn't shock me that individual neighborhoods inside the city of Milwaukee is pointed at for being, at least the perception of this being violent or a place that you would not want to live. But I would say that people actually living here have seen change, have seen improvements in the quality of housing and the safety, the overall safety, the overall cleanliness of the neighborhood, programs and different investors coming in that maybe wants to make a difference. Now, if you're not looking for that, you're not going to find that. But if you're looking for it, it's easy to find in this neighborhood. So that's why I kind of say it's like a double-edged sword. If you a community resident and you're not engaged, you will never know what's going on positive. You will see some of the change, you will feel some of the change, but you wouldn't necessarily know. But for community residents that are engaged and are involved, be it renters or homeowners that's owner-occupied, they see some of the differences and the changes is being made. Yeah.
I'm sorry if you.
No, so overall, I would just say that yes, change is happening. Changes is being made. We're not. It's not a done product yet by no stretch of the imagination. But we're pulling in the right direction. With investment and resident compliance.
We've spoken with other members of this community, and they've echoed the same thing as far as people who are involved as comparison to people who are not getting engaged and figuring out like what's going on and things like that. And they've told us they've tried things to keep bringing in newer and newer faces. What are some of the things that you hear and your team here at Washington Park Partners have been trying to get more community involvement?
Well, we send out quarterly letters. We send out information to all our contact bases and residents that we've made contact with, let them know about different meetings or different events that's going on throughout the community. And we've also done a great job partnering with other organizations in our community. And that makes, that helps for a strong network and a strong net of trying to catch people who may not necessarily come here or know about us. They may go to Progressive Health that's down the street, the brand new building facility that's built on 35th and Lisbon. They may go there and they may hear about something that we are doing, or someone there may refer them down to us. They may go to ONG, our next generation, that's on 34th and Lisbon, organization that deals with kids and families. They may go to the Urban Ecology Center that's located right inside of Washington Park for an event and may hear that, hey, something is going on in our community, or here Washington Park Partners are doing this. Or they may come to our food bank or our clothing bank and hear that, hey, that's ran by UMCS, but if you're looking for employment, why don't you check right here and someone from Washington Park Partners will get back with you. So forming a strong network, with community partners kind of helps us try to attract people new and to get to people that we haven't gotten to before. Also, as well as I go out 2 times a week knocking on doors, letting people know who I am, what I represent, what it is that that I could do. Far as maybe connect you with an employer with potential employment. Again, if you have housing issues, be it you're a renter or a homeowner, there may be some resources available for you. So I go out doing a lot of door to door, and I get a lot of people. But sometimes, I may knock on 70 doors, leave 150 flyers. 2 people may contact me. Not a whole lot, but there's 2 people who I didn't know before that didn't know about us that now do. And some of the best references you can get and best ways of recruiting is word of mouth. If I do something good and have a positive experience with those 2 people, they go out and bring 2 more people. And things have kind of been growing from that perspective. But one of the challenges that we have is that Milwaukee in general is a transient community. People, we have a lot of renters, a lot of duplexes. That's not the greatest when it comes to stability in a sense that someone may be here 3 months, 6 months, or 2 months, and then they're gone. And we may not have had a chance to talk with the people or figure out anything about them, or we may have started working with them, develop a relationship, but then they disappear due to other issues that they may have or other barriers that they may have going on in their life at the time. I mean, it would be a lot simpler if we had people in the community for the long haul, if the average resident stayed here 5, 6 years. That would be different. You're talking about a game changer, being able to have that kind of stability. So that there again is the importance of a organization like Habitat for Humanity, who's building single family houses for homeowners, who's got a commitment, to staying in the community. So for every one of the houses, lots that Habitat takes that could have formerly been a big major duplex, or it could have been a house that was a single family house but dilapidated, for every house that they knock down and build from scratch or renovate is bringing that kind of stability in a family that's going to be here for 5, 10, 15 years or more, and that helps stabilize the community and get messages out with them when partnering with them, when having some of their potential homeowners work through our program is a win-win for the community. And those are the kind of ways that we're trying to address and get out messages and what it is we do and how we could be an assistant or aid to community residents. All right, I'm sorry to I've mentioned Habitat. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Gorman. They're also a major housing entity in our community. Gorman does rehab houses as well as they rent rehab properties, and we have a program with them that we do what's called tenant training, letting tenants know why they're going through their process with Gorman of their rights and their responsibilities, and that is organizations like ours that can help navigate through some of the questions they may have or concerns, and that we also a resource for other things such as clothing, emergency food, and from time to time employment.
Sorry, man, I'm just.
No, that's okay.
Real nervous. I don't know why.
No, you asking the questions. let me be nervous for the both of us.
So let's take this to a more personal level for you and,
Okay.
and your family. So what would you say are some of your favorite things about this area?
Well, my favorite thing about this area is Washington Park.
Yeah, like places look things to do.
Washington Park. Being in and around this area since 1979, no matter where I move, anytime I kind of say Washington Park, I always knew I was kind of like home. The very first duplex that I bought, my very first property, was located between Hatley and Locust, slightly outside of the Washington Park area, but right next to the high school that I graduated from, and right down the street from Washington Park, where I spent a lot of my youth. So whenever I say Washington Park, it always reminds me, I'm home. I get that feeling. Now I lived in other neighborhoods for short spells, but I never kind of got the feeling that I got here. I love the fact of Washington Park and its resources. Some spots in Washington Park you can walk in, man, and you won't even believe you're in Milwaukee still. It'll get that quiet on you, and the scenery will change. And I like having that. And in fact, I currently live right across the street from Washington Park, and that's not by accident. I take my kids to Washington Park, but especially my little daughter. My older two kids, they only come around Washington Park when we doing walks or something occasionally. But I take my daughter to the newly created playground that's there, and she really enjoy it. Albeit it's crowded as all heck, she enjoy it. So, and the other thing that I like about Washington Park is, man, I'm literally 15 minutes away from everything. I can get from my house to downtown in 15 minutes, sometime a lot faster depending on traffic. I could hit 41, be through Miller Parkway, and be in West Milwaukee where all the new shopping things and shopping areas is at. And that's convenient for me and my wife. We get right on the highway in less than 3 minutes, and we there in 7 minutes. My wife works at the VA hospital, which is right across Miller Parkway, so she could be at work in 15 minutes, and she really loves that. So we kind of feel like, we're in the heart of the city. If I can be downtown, I could be in West Milwaukee, or I could be on the northwest side, pretty much in 15, 20 minutes. So I feel like we're centrally located, and it works for us. I don't feel like I'm too far out of reach or out of the loop. I'm convenient on a bus route. If my car ever broke down, I'm on the 30. The 30 stop right in front of my house, Well, let's say on my block, but it's close enough, So, those are things, man, that, you pay attention to as you get a little bit, older, about some convenience things,
And how have you seen the attitude towards the younger, I guess the younger generation, the kids that are coming up through these high schools and getting out into the real world in this neighborhood? Because we've been trying to get a good view of how the youth are seen, or how the youth feel they've been seen by the older people.
What Damaris, that's a good question. And I'm gonna be honest with you on that, as well as I've been honest with you about everything else. I don't know how the youth are being affected on on an individual basis. When I say that, the youth is kind of moody these days. I see when we're out in the community, some of the youth come out, but I'm seeing the young. If you're asking about a certain range, I would say we kind of missing the boat in ages, let's say 15 to 18. I think we kind of missing that boat, because it's kind of hard to reach kids in that area. We rely some on our partners and our community residents to bring their family members out and help engage that way. But it's kind of hard, to try to engage that segment of the population and really get a feel as to what they're thinking and how they're feeling. Now, I know when I'm out on the street, the main thing that I'm hearing about, kids is jobs. And I think the city of Milwaukee, with its Earn to Learn program, has did a decent job trying to address, any kid that wanted to work, that was able to work. But sometimes, with kids, they don't understand that work is more than just a place to go. You have to be prepared to go to work. The day before, hours before, hours after, you got to be prepared. You got to have bus fare, transportation, or somebody that's going to get you there on the regular. And that, I think kids are finding that sometimes to be a little bit challenging, that they didn't really know. I have a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old, but my kids spend a lot of time at different organizations in that school.
Okay.
You know, how they feel about their community. You know, when I ask my kids that, it's kind of hard because I'm a community organizer and they see what I do.
Okay.
You know, so I can't really tell you that I got a pulse on how children in that age range respond to the community. But I do know younger kids, you know, they tend to like playing at the park around here. You know, but still, we have still a lot of families that don't utilize the park. You'll see the basketball courts pulled out into the street, or, you know, kids still playing in the front of their houses, which I don't particularly care for, to be honest with you. Those are things that, in my opinion, put a strain on the community. You know, living this close to the park, if you want to play basketball, you should be able to go to the park. You know, I understand everybody can't be that mobile or can't get out there and go every day, but sometimes having your kids, you know, up and down the street playing, you know, is subject to some crazy things happening. You know, kids get hit by cars, you know, it's on a spare of the moment type of thing. No one tries to hit them purposely, but things happen. Then sometimes you have some inattentive drivers that's not paying attention to the road, and your kid could be doing something innocent on the sidewalk. But again, situations occur. Particularly me, when I try to keep my kid in the backyard as much as possible because I live on a fairly busy street on 40th. If I'm not taking her to the park, I'm trying to keep her in the backyard as opposed to being in the front. You know? So I say I hate those roll-up basketball courts.
Okay. I think that's all.
Now, I think you want to ask me about the interaction between community residents and police.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I
Well,
do definitely need to know, how do you feel the community is reacting with the police?
well, believe it or not, you have more people that want to do the right thing over here than necessarily the wrong thing. One of the issues with community residents as homeowners that's new to the neighborhood or been here for a long time, we want to see what visually seems to us as nuisance properties or nuisance activities dealt with, squashed fast. It's a process that happens. Working with the police department, having our safety meetings, trying to develop more community block organizations, more block watches, more neighborhood watches. We're kind of trying to get the word out that we need you guys on the ground to do more than complain about what you see when we at a meeting. We need you actively calling the police and making a police report. We need you actively working with Washington Park Partners to fill out our hotspot forms. If you're not comfortable with people knowing your name, hey, I understand you have to live there. You don't want to say something about somebody that stayed 2 houses down for fear of retaliation. I understand that. But there are hotspots forms that we have that we need you to fill out thoroughly, letting us know the kind of car they drive, if you know their nickname, if you heard something, if you've seen something, the day, the time. Because this information collected helps us build the argument to the police that something is going on here and we need you to act faster sooner than later. And police only could go by the squeaky wheel theory. If enough calls is made on a certain property or properties or certain people, then they have to come and investigate that and do something about that. You know, so a lot of times when community residents are complaining, the complaints is not translated to what actually happens. I have a situation just as an example of that. I was called by a community member who said that a certain house has activities and has been going on for so long and they're tired of it. They've tried to ask the people to do things as simple as turn down music and they would not, so that they can go to work, and they work a certain shift that, you know, requires them to sleep a lot. Well, they made the complaint to me. I personally knew that our CPU unit has been working in that area, but I don't know to what dexterity as to what is actually what their actual plan is. So I forward the information. I get back this from an important member of that team. I met with the owner today to explain the issues and discuss a plan. The owner stated that they will deal with the tenant today and resolve unwanted activities. There's only one call from police to this location in the past 90 days. Okay. I have to convey this to a community resident. That look, you guys are complaining, but you're not complaining.
Right.
You know, and I think that's the tough part about what we're doing, because myself, I live in this area. I see things, and it's to a degree as to what I'm going to complain about. But I think I have a fairly good sense of what's a police issue and what's not. You know, and I think sometimes there are things that's police issues, and there are things that's just regular, just nuisance that we just can't stand. But it's a way to complain about it and document it so that the process could go. And it's got to be something that's obtainable. You know, we have to be able to hold the police department accountable, but we have to have documentation as to what we're holding them accountable for. You know, is it for lack of action? Is it for no action? But if we can't prove that they even got the message, then how can we hold them accountable for it? You know? So walking that line between, you know, making sure that community residents that's invested in the community, that, you know, paying their rent or a homeowner paying their property taxes. You know, we all have a right to have a decent, safe place to live. No one has that right to make you feel like you a captive in your own home or your own neighborhood, that you can't go outside and sit on your front porch because of activities that's going on by people who probably don't have a stake in your community. A lot of time, what I hear from community residents, talking like my daughter, what I even hear is that it's not the people that live on the block, it's their company. It's people from other neighborhoods coming over here that don't even live over here. 20 deep, you know, and that happens, you know. But if the landlord of that property don't know what's going on because they don't live here, a first step is to inform the landlord, hey, so you got a problem over there. We can't just run and kick in the door and, you know, you wouldn't want that because anybody could call on anybody and have something like that done if that was the case. So you want police to do the due diligence to make sure they going in a house with probable cause, you know, that's justifiable. So a lot of times having community residents understand that it's a process that has to happen, you know, and what we can do is stay on top of the process and force the hand. You know, so that's some of the things. I drive around this community. I walk around this community. It has gotten noticeably cleaner. We still have some things to go, some ways to go and some things to do. But I tell everybody that I come into contact with is that, look, for, you know, lack of a better way of putting it, if you could live someplace else, you probably would. The fact of the matter is we all here for a reason. You know, whether it makes economical sense for us to be here or whether it's we can't go no place but here. But if you here, you have to take ownership of your spot here. You know, I hear, well, I want my area to look like Washington Heights. I want it to look like Wauwatosa. But that's some good neighborhoods to strive toward. But they do some things that you got to understand that's not seen. Oh, they show up to meetings in the masses. They know who's driving up and down them streets if there's more than once or twice. They know their neighbor to the left of them and to the right of them and across the street from them. They understand they're communicating with each other and figuring out, you know, what everybody's willing to tolerate is better than what one person wants to tolerate. You know, so if you start to do that kind of work like they do, and I'm not just saying this, I've been in some of the meetings, you know, I see some of their community organizers. You know, their community organizers, a lot of them don't come from a community organization. That's a neighbor that took that mantra on. You have to invest in your community if you want your community to look like something. It's just not going to happen overnight. This community did not turn overnight, and it's not going to change overnight. But it's definitely not going to change if you don't have no buy-in to it as a community resident, whether you're a renter or a homeowner. Doing decent things, cutting your grass, putting your garbage in the can, not around the can. Staying off your grass and other people's grass. Bringing your kids in at a decent hour. Calling the police and making a complaint when you're seeing somebody doing some things that you don't want happening on your block. You have to get involved. You just have to get involved. And that's the difference. The fundamental difference, I believe, my opinion, from what I've seen as a community resident and as a community organizer in my vast many years in this community. You have certain people who want to complain but don't want to be part of the solution. You have everybody got to have some skin in the game. If we could do better, we will. But I personally like the comfort and the luxuries that I'm able to have by living in the Washington Park area. I could probably go live someplace else and pay a lot more, but I choose not to, because I believe it's an area worth fighting for, and it's an area that I'm comfortable with. So if I'm in a unique situation where I'm a community resident and I'm a community organizer in the same area, so I speak out of both sides of my mouth when I talk about these things from time to time, and I'm able to talk with community residents because, hey, I live here too. I'm not just telling you guys something that I'm not doing myself. Yeah. Now, would I like to be able to speed up the process? I love to. But at the same time, people have rights and we need to be respectful of that because we don't want a newsworthy situation to occur from something that should be innocent.
Right. So, in different parts of this interview, you've touched on how it's getting better. So, where do you see the community going in the future?
Good question. I see it continuously getting better. I can see more involvement from an investment standpoint. The more companies, organizations, the city is willing to invest into a community, the better the outcome looks for that community. So I think that the Washington Park area is setting some examples of how effective partnering inside a community could work. Where it could have the deliverable and the measurable outcomes that everyone's looking for. Investments don't come without a price. If a company invests in it, they want something out of it. If the city invests something in it, they want something out of it. If we produce low crime rates, low turnover in renters, cleanliness, less involvement with the, less, let's say less police calls, that makes for a more stable community that other people could invest in. Then maybe we start to see the Aldis come or, other organizations that want to open up. And, we had a Walgreens leave off of North Avenue. That's a black eye to the community. We have a big building sitting there and it's empty. We kind of quelled that perception of the Washington Park area. We improved the cleanliness over there and the type of stores that we want. We could get another quality store there, that people could be proud of to call our own, go into, and could, maybe a source of a few more jobs. So I see the Washington Park area on an incline and things getting better for the future. It's slow, but I think more is going to draw, what we do today is going to draw in more investment and more interest into our neighborhood. Having organizations like Habitat work exclusively in our area for 5 years Gorman working in our area, and all over the area, but working in Washington Park area, developing that relationship. That's big. That's big. UMCS, 20 years in the area, progressive, the Urban Ecology Center. Um, as you guys been to Amaranth, Dave, bringing in that diversity. You know, diversity is the thickening of a soup that we need in our community.
I like that.
Anytime it's just one, you know, you lose a lot, you know. But we have a Hmong population that's growing in our community. Um, we have a Sumerian population that's growing. Somali, yeah, that's Somali, not Sumerian. That's another Indian, African country. But Somalian population that's growing, and that's bringing some diversity. Kids are starting to talk, deal with each other. When before, it's a language barrier, but about time it's second, third generation, kids are interacting. And that's something that I see in the elementary schools. Mary Bethune, I see that at Westside Academy 1 and 2. You're starting to see Hmong kids, and Somalian kids, African American kids, and some Caucasian kids. Um, that's what's up. That's what our neighborhood needs. They need to keep growing, and need to keep being a little bit more diverse, and we need to keep getting companies and businesses in here that that everyone could appreciate and utilize. We got people like Brother Munir, who's a artist. He brings a flavor to the community that would be remiss if he was to ever close his doors or something was to happen. It's those type of things that that little flavor that makes a neighborhood, a community, a community. Now we get a few more ethnic restaurants up and down Lisbon. That now you got something going. You got Dave on one side and you have something else on the other side. Hey, we had the bus stop up here. Unfortunately, they decided to close and move to another state. But the bus stop offered a spot for you to go in the morning at 7 and drink a cup of coffee, talk about community issues with community residents. Because they were owner occupied. They not only owned the business, they stayed upstairs. They were involved in the community. See, there's those type of things that bring a little flavor to the neighborhood. Get people talking about issues and events. And people that makes people want to participate. Someone come in for a sandwich or a donut, they get a bit of information about what's going on in the community. That's good. And those are the little building blocks that we have to make sure is in place. To be the platform to hold other things. Make you feel good when you're in your neighborhood. You don't have to go too far. You could walk here, walk there, and I could get my health care done all right here at Progressive, a new facility. I don't have to go way out. They got a sliding pay scale, so if I don't have insurance, they could bill me for it according to my income or lack thereof. That's good for a community to have. So we have access to health care. That's big. And how all of that works, if I have a client come through the door, they need to be seen by a doctor. I make a call to some people I know at Progressive. They talk to the individual, get them in to see them. Well, that's community there. This person came from nothing and found one place that got them what they eventually needed. Or if that person needed housing or clothing or something, those are the signs to me of a vital community, a community that's able to help provide some resources for, the least of us, the people in need the most, So those are the type of things that I see happening here in Washington Park on a small scale, but I think it's growing.
You, and do you see as these little blocks are building up over time, that they're just getting stronger and stronger, that that other places such as the Washington Park Partners will start to develop in this area, and then help that to spread throughout the other communities within Milwaukee, so that Washington Park becomes the spot where the proverbial pebble dropped in the water that makes the ripples.
Well, you know what? I think that we're kind of one of those pebbles that hit the water, because we've learned lessons from other communities too, the Walnut Hill, Harambe area, River Works. They all have different flavors, but we've studied and looked at what works and what don't, and then we're doing some trial and errors here too. So Washington Park is, we want to be the latest one to drop and make a splash, but something that's sustainable and carry over to another neighborhood, like you just mentioned. We just want to be one of them, and Milwaukee started to have a lot of them. One of the things that I think it was Mayor Norquist did when he was the mayor of the city of Milwaukee, he wanted to make sure that every house belonged to a community in a neighborhood. So he made sure that all the neighborhoods in Milwaukee had a name. There were some names that was already there, but he wanted to make sure that everyone had one. And I think that's good. If you talk to the average resident, they probably don't know if they're in Metcalf Park, Washington Park, Walnut Way, Harambe. They probably don't know that. But the more people begin to know what community they identify with, the more they get to know about what that community has to offer for them.
And then, if you could give us just one of your favorite memories from being within this park, or something that you've seen that you started, and then one day you were able to really see how it was really helping everyone out.
Well, inside of our organization, the Washington Park Partners, as I came aboard, I was given the latitude to, what's the temperature out on the blocks, what people are looking for. And I was able to come back to my supervisors. First, there was Matt Melendez, and now it's Bess Earl, and say, people looking for employment. This is what I'm hearing the most. Looking at our sustainable communities plan, we had actually something that's in place to address unemployment. And Washington Park Partners has a situation going on called a NID, and that stands for Neighborhood Improvement District. All of the houses, single families, I believe, is $50. I believe duplexes is $100, and I believe businesses is anywhere from $100, $200, or $300. But everything in this community has an assessment tax, a special tax put onto their regular tax, for the sole purpose of improving this district. With that comes responsibilities, and Washington Park Partners has taken on the responsibilities of making sure that we implement a plan that affects the community and give the community the things that the community is looking for as best as we could, and having to do it in an even way. So Washington Park Partners has programs, different groups, but part of the groups that we have to address those is the Health and Wellness, the Housing Committee, the Safety Committee, the Arts and Cultures Committee, the Community Education Committee, the Business and Jobs Committee, and the Parks Committee. And hopefully what we've done was to connect community residents with resources. What I like to say is my main job as a community organizer is connect the people to the resources and the resources to the people. So from having this business and jobs committee, and going out on the street and identifying jobs and employment as one of the major issues, we was able to put together a clean and green team. The clean and green team consists of 3 employees that's paid for through Easley Construction and Washington Park Partners. And it's like a rapid response team to some of the cleanliness issues in our community and to assist each program with things that need to be done inside our community. So it took some people that wasn't employed and giving them an opportunity to work and develop some skills and have some transferable skills. Now, what I would hope to see is that program grow to us hiring a whole 10, 20, 30 people year round. That's from within our community. Then I can sit back and say, hey, I had something to do with that program getting started. And that make me happy, Even though, what we do here at Washington Park Partners, we're a small crew, but we're an effective crew. We have a crew of about 5 now. And that's good. We work hand in hand from the business corridors to the housing, to employment, to arts, culture, gardening. Try to make sure that the community residents are involved and getting the things that they ask for to help make this community worth living in. Yeah. And our mantra here is that we are the change.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for this interview. Is there anything you'd like to add or anything you feel I didn't touch on that you would like to?
No, I think you've done a pretty good job interviewing. I mean, I think we got, most of everything, out of it. If there's anything missed, don't hesitate to give me a call. I can say it over the phone or whatever.
No.
Stop it.
You said